All I have to say after coming out of this Mob Psycho 100 episode is this is my favorite goddamn season of anime I think I've ever experienced. Just hit after hit, favorite shows like Mob Psycho 100 topping themselves week after week. It is a great time to be an anime fan, but I will say, with all that said, Truck-kun has gone too far. There is one character that I do not ever want to see Truck-kun interact with if it means him not throwing it to the goddamn moon, and that's my boy Mob, especially after Mob. My boy has balls of steel this episode. He's probably gonna get denied. If, Truck-kun hadn't did what he did, he would have brought the flowers, he probably would have been turned down, and honestly, Mob probably would have dealt with it pretty okay. But the fact that you subvert expectations in such a great way, because almost immediately when the traffic changed and you saw the boy with his little Game Boy, whatever the hell he was playing with, I figured, oh shit, there's gonna be a truck coming in and then he'll throw it. And they do exactly that, but because the cat was crossing the road and obviously we see, everything's fine. And then to see the same thing happen, I'm like, okay, well he'll just do it again. And then you see the bloody hand, and then you see my boy with the flowers, and I'm like, you sick mofos, you sick absolute mofos. But, I'm excited. I did watch the preview because I'm 95% of the time, I don't watch previews. I know I'm going to watch the episode, but there's sometimes endings where I have to see, hey, where are you going next? And I'm not going to talk about the preview in case people didn't watch it and they want to go in blind. But it does have me excited with the remaining episodes, because this is the last arc. This is the final hurrah of Mob Psycho 100, and one of the things I've been praising so much is Mob's growth. Mob is, if you look at night and day from Season 1, Episode 1 to where he's at now in Season 3. And the fact that, building up throughout this show, I've always been under the assumption he'll never get with his crush. That's always been my assumption, that Mob Psycho is a story about growing up, and that sometimes just because you like someone doesn't mean they'll like you back. It's a pretty hard thing to accept growing up, and hell, there's still adults who get to 40 to 50, they die thinking that if they like someone, they're supposed to like them back, and if they don't, then, they get upset and they throw temper tantrums. And I think, even though it's not impossible that these two could end up together, I think what they've been building up so far has led me to believe that Mob is going to have to come to a crisis of some sort that won't tip him off to 100, but he'll say, well, shit, that's life, it hurts, but I appreciate the honesty. And to me, that's kind of what they were building up to as it stood. Though, with the whole car crash thing, I am curious if that could set her off to then tiptoeing around that and then maybe saying, oh shit, I didn't realize until it was almost gone who I truly love. That could work and it could be excellent, but over the course of this show, that's always been my assumption. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen with Mob, even outside of his personal love life, but most importantly, the final boss, the final hurrah, the final arc in general. Because if you actually look at the beginning of Season 1, this was actually pointed out to me in my comments in the previous Mob Psycho video, is that if you look at how Mob Psycho started off in Season 1, it all revolved around the club. And the fact that we're ending the show with last week, the whole alien extravaganza, whatever you want to call it, the fact that it more or less started and ended in the same way. Yes, there's still a few more episodes left of this show, but given where I think those characters could end up going, and just the fact that, it feels like an open and shut book where all the pages had something to offer in different ways, and the fact that they're still letting the side cast be relevant. The whole Muscle Club, you could have easily made them disposable, it's a kind of funny meme characters who are always flexing, they're trying to get my boy buff. But the fact that everyone that Mob's interacted with over the course of this story has had an influence on him, both good and bad, and the fact that it honestly feels like when you compare just how life is supposed to be in our own world and how Mob Psycho's handling it here, it's one of the best tales of actually adolescent growth and how people struggle to fit in, find their place. Mob's going over the whole thing in his head this will be my last shot to ask her out. And then it just comes crashing down that he wasted his time, right? Now everyone's trying to ask her out, and it's like a machine just saying no, 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 no to literally everyone. And how does a boy like Mob stand up to her? Well, in typical anime fashion, childhood friend dynamic, they kick off this episode with that. But then we see over the course of the episode when he flashes back more, she wasn't really that impressed. And it's interesting because this show can be so brutally honest at times, and from the brother to even Reagan, right? They all more or less think Mob will get turned down, but they also never think Mob's gonna get hit by a truck and could potentially be in a coma or anything. And these realistic moments that come out of nowhere The fact that in the disguise of supernatural, oh, the boy can shove a car away and no cat will get hurt. But then he gets blindsided because he doesn't have enough time to do the same thing, because most likely by the time he realized where the boy was in proximity, if he would have just pushed it, most likely he still would have been hit, so all he could do was jump in front himself. And it's pretty painful, man. Like, I don't feel like, oh, Mob's dead next week, or I don't feel like Mob's dead right away, but it still doesn't change the fact that you subverted expectations so hard by making it a love episode, a slice-of-life episode about a boy finally having the nerve to confess, and honestly, one of the hardest things in life is never confessing those feelings, even if it means being turned down. The whole thought of what if I would have said it, would things be different, it can eat away at people. So for Mob to finally be like, this is my moment, whatever happens is gonna happen, I mean, he probably has that hope in the back of his mind that she would say yes, but it also felt like he was okay with whatever happened, because at least he finally put himself out there, and if it doesn't work out, he can move on to other things, right? And the fact that you use such a classic anime trope of someone getting hit by a car, and then you make me drop my guard even more than I already kind of had it dropped when I was like, oh shit, he's gonna throw the car away, and it'll be a, haha, you thought he was gonna get isekai'd, to then actually hitting him and seeing him bloody, and this ain't no isekai, this is someone bleeding and dying on the ground, and that's pretty nutty. Though there was a fun Easter egg in this episode. I'm not sure if we've seen it before, we probably have, whether in posters or something, but the fact that Mob, when he flips his phone up, we see Saitama from One Punch Man as his wallpaper. I love those little details from authors who share similar works, right? You know, he worked on One Punch Man, worked on Mob, so why not throw some fun little things in there for the viewers to catch? And it was a great episode. I mean, this season in general is the best Mob Psycho's been. I think Mob Psychos has progressively gotten better with each season, and while this season started off a relatively slower, where we've gone over the last third of this show here has been absolute excellence and peak character development. Dimple, the whole what the hell alien stuff, to this with Mob growing up. It's just so fantastic and so well worth anyone's time and attention. I mean, the thing that's going to be crazy is that I imagine the action that we had when Dimple kind of went off, which I heard was mostly original content that the anime flexed when Dimple was fighting all the fake mobs. I have a feeling that whatever the final hurrah of this season's going to be, like, if that was something they added as an original content that they didn't have to from the manga, whatever is the actual final battle of this season is probably going to look 10 times crazier, which is kind of insane to think about because the Dimple fight was still like one of the best Mob Psycho fights hands down, and the fact that that was mostly original from what I heard means that the actual content they have to adapt is probably going to look even 10 times crazier, so I'm excited. But thoughts and feelings yourself down below. How shocking was it for Truck-kun not to necessarily hit someone, but the fact that he didn't save himself? Like, that's the thing that kind of, it got me, right? I mean, characters getting hit you kind of expect, but not necessarily Mob. But thoughts and feelings down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here. You can support the Patreon if you want to see a bunch of live reactions or get video shoutouts, so do consider that if you so wish. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.